The Tariffs of 1828, Marilyn Monroe, and Roadhouse are all on this day. Welcome back to On This Day. Today's date is May 19th, 2025. It is the 139th day of the year. There are 226 days left. This is your 20th Monday in your 21st week and the 61st day of spring. You got 32 days left until summer. If today's your birthday, your birthstone is an emerald. Now, there's no special holidays here in the United States. There's a few of these dates throughout the year, and this is one of them. I guess the closest one we have is in Canada, and that is their Patriots' Day, they call it. All right, let's see what else May 19th has given us. 1536, Anne Boleyn, the second wife of Henry VIII of England, is beheaded for adultery, treason, and incest. This was the most egregious trial known to man. By today's standards, this whole case against Anne Boleyn, who was beheaded, was a travesty. 1776, the American Revolutionary War. A Continental Army garrison surrenders in the Battle of the Cedars. 1828, President John Quincy Adams signs the Tariffs of 1828 into law. And let's just say it didn't exactly win him any popularity contests. This tariff, also known by its way more dramatic nickname, the Tariff of Abomination, was meant to protect American industries, especially wool manufacturing in the North. The idea was simple: make imported goods more expensive so people would be more likely to buy American-made products. Sounds patriotic, right? Well, not if you lived in the South. Southern states were furious. They didn't have the big factories the North did, so they weren't reaping the benefits. Instead, they were stuck paying higher prices on everything they imported, from clothes to tools, while watching their own exports like cotton suffer because of retaliatory tariffs from other countries. Basically, the North got richer and the South got angrier. This law ended up being one of the biggest sparks in the growing tension between the industrial North and the agricultural South. In fact, it got so bad that Vice President John C. Calhoun, who was from South Carolina, started quietly writing about states' rights and nullification. You know, the whole idea of states could ignore federal laws like they didn't exist. Yeah, spoiler alert, that didn't go over well later. So while Adams thought he was boosting American industry, what he really did was pour gasoline on a regional fire that would keep burning for decades. This is one of the things that helped spark the Civil War. I mean, there had always been tensions and there was a lot of other things that played in here, but this was part of it, even though it was 20 some odd years prior. 1900, Great Britain annexes Tonga Island. If you don't know where that is, it is down there like northeast of New Zealand and east of Australia, in the middle of the ocean. And it's really not a big island. You know, for some reason, probably because my other channel, World According to Briggs, if I talk about a location, I have to give you background. It's like a compulsion. 1942, World War II. After the Battle of the Coral Sea, which isn't too far from Tonga, Task Force 16 limps back to Pearl Harbor for some much-needed repairs. So picture this. On May 1942, the Pacific is heating up, and the U.S. Navy just got out of a brutal slugfest with the Japanese in the Battle of the Coral Sea. It was one of those battles where both sides kind of walked away claiming victory, but let's be real, everyone was licking their wounds. For the Americans, Task Force 16, led by the aircraft carrier USS Enterprise and was backed by the Hornet, they're in rough shape. Even though Task Force 16 didn't take the brunt of the damage, that honor went to Task Force 17 with USS Lexington, which didn't make it out. They were still battered, tired, and low on fuel, aircraft, and morale. So they set course for Pearl Harbor, the Navy's favorite pit stop in the Pacific. Pearl wasn't just a place to patch up ships. It was where the big brains of Naval Command were trying to figure out what the Japanese were going to do next. Task Force 16 rolled in, the guys got a bit of rest, the ship got some repairs, and plans for the next major showdown. Spoiler alert, the Battle of Midway started to take shape. One of my favorite stories about Midway is how they figured out the Japanese were going to attack Midway. So we had all kinds of islands out there and troops stationed on it. We knew Japan was getting ready for an attack. We didn't know where. Well, this one very eccentric intelligence officer kind of had a feeling it was Midway, and he said that's going to be Midway. They really didn't believe him. They needed proof. So the Japanese had been giving letters to different islands, and we didn't know which one was which. But this one island, AF. This intelligence officer thought that was Midway, so he needed to prove it because they're picking up the radio signals and the chatter from the Japanese. So he sent a transmission from Midway saying that their water tank or their water supply was broken. Well, soon after, they picked up a radio transmission from the Japanese saying that Island AF was having water problems. So they knew it was Midway and they were ready for him. I could do a whole video on that. Maybe I'll do an extra long deep dive when that day comes up, which will be June 4th. 1950, Egypt announces that the Suez Canal is closed to Israeli ships and commerce. This course led to the Suez Crisis in 1956. This is where an alliance of Israel, France, and Britain invaded Egypt, but under international pressure, they withdrew, and the UN peacekeeping forces were stationed in the Sinai Desert. 1962, a birthday salute to President John F. Kennedy takes place at Madison Square Garden in New York City. The highlight is Marilyn Monroe's rendition of Happy Birthday. Years later, we find out they may have been having an affair. 2018, the wedding of Prince Harry and Meghan Markle is held at St. George Chapel in Windsor. An estimated global audience of 1.9 billion people tuned in or showed up. I don't get it. I don't understand the whole, why is this a big deal? I remember when Prince Charles and Princess Diana got married, that was huge. I knew family members that were glued to the television at like 4 a.m. because it was happening. Movies released on May 19th, 1989, Roadhouse. Great movie. A bouncer at a roadside bar protects a small Missouri town from a corrupt businessman. Now, this had all kinds of cool people in it. You had Patrick Swayze as the star, Sam Elliott, Kelly Lynch, Ben Gazzara, the musician Jeff Healey played a part, Kevin Tighe was in it, who we all know as Roy DeSoto from Emergency, and even Keith David. Now, this was just a classic movie from the 1980s. Everyone watched it, and it was just great. And there's a love scene between Patrick Swayze and Kelly Lynch, who in real life is married to a man named Michael Glazer. Michael Glazer is a writer, producer, and an actor. He's also friends with Bill Murray, and Bill Murray's weird. So for years, Bill Murray would call him in the middle of the night and act like it was another person whenever the love scene was about to happen. So he'd call him and go, as a friend, I want to let you know that you might want to turn on TBS right now, because that bastard Patrick Swayze has got your wife up against a wall. And then he'd hang up the phone on him. He told this story on the Travis Kelce podcast he does with his brother. It was great. Sadly, they did a sequel called Roadhouse 2, and it was done in 2006. It went directly to DVD. A remake was announced in 2015, but that never happened. And in 2024, they did remake it with Jake Gyllenhaal. It was not nearly as good as the one from 1989, but it was definitely better than that garbage that came out in 2006. Sadly, I was invited to the premiere at the 2006 one. I'm thinking, okay, Hollywood premiere of a, not the greatest movie, maybe I'll go. It was basically a DVD release party. It was sad. Born on May 19th, we got two. Pol Pot, Cambodian general and politician, the 29th Prime Minister of Cambodia. He died in 1998. Yeah, he was a nightmare. It is estimated between 1.6 and 1.8 million Cambodians died as a result of the Khmer Rouge's policies. He was in charge of the Khmer Rouge. Almost a quarter of Cambodia's population in 1975. Now, they've had other things come out that said it was just under 2 million people died. In 1970, he was put on trial and imprisoned for life, while a lot of his old henchmen were put to death. He died in his sleep on April 15th, 1998. I'm sure not many tears were shed for him. Also born on this day, 1925, Malcolm X, American minister and activist. He was assassinated while giving a speech. Denzel Washington played him in a movie. It was pretty good. All right, that's today's video. Hope you enjoyed it. Be nice to each other.